One of Donald Trump's lawyers is threatening to take Robert Mueller's team to court if the special counsel tries to subpoena the president. That threat comes as the New York Times publishes a secret letter from Trump's lawyers arguing that he can't obstruct the Russia investigation because he is ultimately in charge of it. Mike Wise is working on all that for us. Mike, thanks for joining us this morning. Take us through the details.
Well, thank you, John. This is actually Rudy Giuliani who made this threat during an interview with ABC News, essentially saying that to Mueller's team, if you force Trump to testify, we will fight that in court. This comes as the New York Times published a secret 20-page letter from Trump's legal team to those investigators. The letter actually dates back to January, only being made public this weekend. Now, in that letter, which was written by two of Trump's defense lawyers, no longer with them at the time, though, they made a bold and broad claim about the nature of presidential power, claiming that the president can't be charged with illegal obstruction of an investigation because the U.S. Constitution, as they argue, gives the president the power to terminate an inquiry or even pardon anyone involved with it. I want to bring up a bit of that letter that was made public, and it writes that it remains our position that the president's actions here, by virtue of the position as chief law enforcement officer, could neither constitutionally nor legally constitute obstruction, because that would amount to him obstructing himself, and that he could, if he wished, terminate the inquiry or even exercise his power to pardon if he so desired. They go on in that letter to argue that he's very busy running the country. He may not have time for an interview. The president, though, did have time to take to Twitter yesterday. He may have known that this was in the works, tweeting this before the New York Times article was published, saying there is no collusion with Russia except by the Democrats, which when will this very expensive witch hunt hoax ever end? So bad for our country. Is Special Counsel Justice Department leaking my lawyer's letters to the fake news media? John.
Well, there's a lot in that and a bold claim from Trump's lawyers. But let's look at this, Mike. How much power do the courts have, as far as we know, over a sitting president?
No, if you look at precedent, certainly they can order testimony or things. Richard Nixon, of course, ordered to turn some of his tapes over to investigators. More recently, Bill Clinton was ordered to testify before a grand jury. In that case, though, his lawyers made a special arrangement for Clinton to provide testimony in the White House and not in front of the cameras or anything like that. So the subpoena in that case was dropped. So it can be done. But as for the questions raised by Trump's team in this letter, can he exercise his constitutional power over the supervision of the Justice Department? Well, that remains an open question, likely to be tested in court if it goes to that. Now, Trump's lawyers also arguing that there is no need for Trump to provide testimony to investigators, since they have provided a lot of documentation, conversations, made witnesses available. Now, the New York Times in its article argues that when it comes to a subpoena fight, this might come down to the question of intent, that investigators, even though they are sitting on all these documents, might want to still talk to Trump to get some sense of intent and what went into that thinking. So if it comes to that, we'll certainly see a legal challenge.